Hi, I'm Larry Day in Toronto talking with Leslie Nielsen about Naked Gun 2.5.
We haven't been talking about Naked Gun 2.5. You haven't said anything to me at all since I've been in here. This is how the interview is starting out, folks. Go ahead. We
Leslie,
could just
first
have
of all,
everything straight and above board.
I want you to clear something up for me.
Okay.
I understand this is not a sequel.
As far as I'm concerned, it's not a sequel. You know, but the way it happens today, why do you say that?
Somebody told me that the last movie you made was the prequel, and this is
Oh,
the real
I see.
movie.
Oh, okay. I'm glad I interrupted myself because I realized all of a sudden that you weren't being serious. And I'm a serious fellow. You know, you hit on a thing I've discussed with David. In marketing today, Naked Gun has become such a recognizable name that it's dumb not to use it again. And of course, if you use it again, then you're going into what they call a sequel, and that's the way it goes. So when talking with David, I say, you know, I don't think that anybody, especially when we're in comedy, should talk about topping yourself. I mean, the way those guys work and the way they write, you just be as funny as you can, as you want to be. That's all you see up on the screen is what they think is funny anyway. And you don't try to top yourself.
Well,
You just be funny.
I think that's a good approach because it's a tough act to follow. Naked Gun is a very funny picture.
But I think it has been followed. Naked Gun 2.5, I think, is very funny. I think it may be funnier than the first one. My description of it's so dumb and so stupid is wonderful.
You get to play Frank Drebin again. Tell me a little bit about this guy, this character.
I think it's been really more aptly said by somebody else. There's a critic in London, and he described Frank Drebin, and he said, consummate obliviousness. Frank Drebin is totally unaware of everything. And things can fall down beside him, buildings can collapse, and he's so single-minded. He doesn't even see. But you know, I used to think that Drebin was never, you know, it was a character I played, and it was not part of me. I mean, I'm a sophisticated man of the world, not Frank Drebin. He's a, you know, consummate obliviousness. And I was going to have dinner with friends of mine, with my lady, and at one time my lady had dated the husband of the couple we were going to have dinner with. And they, you know, it was reasonably serious. And so we're heading in the direction of the restaurant, and we're getting close, and she says to me in the car, she says, this doesn't bother you, does it? Because we had been going together for a short time, and I look at her, and she says, these things, do they just go over your head, these things? And I looked at her, I said, what things? Because, you know, I had concerned myself with the idea that she might have tentative feelings about this dinner and the meeting and so on. But the moment I said it, she broke up and I broke up. And I thought, Frank Drebin, consummate obliviousness, totally unaware. And that's also, I've come to accept my absolute stupidity and dumbness. I realize that that's a very good part of me.
You know, I think that is putting your finger a little bit on the success of that character too, and that you play him straight. You play him as a cop that's really trying to get the job done, and all the gags just are funny.
Police work is serious business. Absolutely. But you have to. But that's also been the bane in my life, and to a certain extent, because it has to do also with the appearance. Because I have a tendency to look like I know what I'm doing, and to sound like I know what I'm doing. And you know, and if I would talk about something, you know, people could pay attention. It used to be part of my humor to take something that was inane and occupy a person's time for a minute or a minute and a half or two until finally say, come on, you know, but they paid attention. They thought you were being, you know, really serious and saying something apropos or incisive. And also with me, since I was athletic, if I went out with a tennis racket, you know, people would say, got to be a good tennis player. Or a golf player, say, he's got to play very good golf. The expectations were always there for me to be kind of, was the expectations of perfection, none of which I have, of course. And so now Frank Drebin has come along, and it's really wonderful because it helps to set you free. Because now people don't say, look at that fellow, you know, he looks like that as a human being and he's behaving like such an idiot, a ridiculous fool. Now they look and say, Frank Drebin, look at that, and they accept it. And that's a pleasure.
It strikes me that when I see you playing Frank Drebin and a couple of the other comedy parts you've played lately, even the commercials that you do, that it's not that different from what you did when you were playing a straight
It's not different, no.
Thriller.
This is exactly what happened on Airplane when they cast us in, Robert Stack, myself, Peter Graves, Lloyd Bridges. They knew that if we did their material with the same gravity and seriousness with which we approached police action drama and those other shows, that what they would give us to do, the contrast would be very funny, and that's exactly what it was. And when I read the script of Airplane, I knew exactly what they wanted to do. I remember talking with my agent at that time, and I said, do not negotiate. I don't want to lose this job. I said, I will do it at any price. I'll even pay them. Please don't tell them that. I had to instruct them about these things.
Did you know at that time, obviously you liked the script, but did you know at that time that this was going to open a whole new chapter in your career?
No, it never occurred to me. It was just a thirst, a yearning to do comedy. And I had occasionally mentioned this to my agent. I said, I'd like to do some comedy, but I was too timid. You know, I didn't force the issue and say, hey, come on, you know, let's go for comedy. And naturally he wouldn't, because the sitcom, you got paid about 1/5 as a guest appearance as you would get doing a drama. So, you know, he was in it for the money, and I didn't have guts enough to force the issue. But by accident it came about, and I just feel very lucky, I really do.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting thing, you know, that I want to ask you maybe about typecasting, where people, they got the idea that you did these certain types of roles, very straight, very believable, but always drama. And who would ever think of hiring Leslie Nielsen in the comedy?
Very few people. And, well, of course, even when they hired me to do Airplane, they were thinking about me in terms of drama, not comedy. They just knew that it would be funny if, you know, they knew I could do that, and that's what they were looking for. So, you know, the same with Robert Stack and so on. But Stack has a wonderful sense of humor. You know? But to have that opportunity is, to me, it's been just a wonderful stroke of luck.
That always seems to work pretty well, though, when somebody uses some imagination and casts somebody against type, and all of a sudden the whole audience perks up, pays attention. Hey,
but
look at this.
I had that in drama with one producer, Jack Laird at Universal Studios, a fine writer, fine producer, but I did 3 two-hour movies of the week for him. One, a absolute total beast of a sheriff, Shadow over Elveron, to a Greek peasant, multi-billionaire shipping magnate. Can you imagine somebody casting me as a Greek? I wore contact lenses, and we actually had to streak my hair with shoe polish black to age, crazy, to age me more. This was a number of years ago. And also I played a Melvin Belli kind of character who was an international attorney. Each one was a different role, but actors still have to have patrons today. In Shakespeare's time, you know, the Duke did this, or the Duchess, or whatever. But today it's somebody who believes in your work and can hire you and give you a shot at those things that require imagination.
You've had a chance to play a good guy, bad guy, a funny guy. Would you have a favorite of those 3?
I love funny. I love comedy. I love the humor. I'd be happy to do all of the. I'm an actor. I'm a pro. You know, I'm a plumber, but I don't do just the plumbing in Beverly Hills bathrooms. You know, I work in all kinds of jobs, and I may be excluded into one corner now because of the comedy, and it may be difficult to do, but I don't have to do it on television or in movies. I can go on stage to do the one-man play Clarence Darrow on Darrow's life. I can go back and do that, and I will, if I have to have a thirst for drama.
That's a good question, too. Have you burned your bridges a little bit as far as drama is concerned now?
I'm sure. You know, I'm sure it is. I mean, it's the way it goes. It's the nature of the animal. When the audience likes you doing a certain thing, you become a commercial product then. And if you violate that concept, they respond by not spending their money. And boy, You know, it's Walter Matthau. They asked him about his acting, being an actor's actor one time. He says, "I'm not an actor's actor." He says, "No, they all talk about you." He says, "No, no. I mean, the banks do tell you what kind of an actor I am. They bring a part in to get money for a picture. They say, this is not a Walter Matthau part." He says, "They don't give you any money." He says, "And if they give you the money, it's because that's a Walter Matthau part. That's the only way I find out who I am." He's wonderful. He's my favorite.
Leslie, we've been talking to performers and actors lately about what they dream about at night. If I ask you what you dream about at night, do you have a recurring dream or a funny story or something that comes to mind when I ask you that question?
From the time I was 5 years old. And I'm not going to tell you.
But you still have the same dream?
No, I don't. No, I'm only kidding. No, I don't really have any recurring dream. I used to dream occasionally about, you know, being on stage or whatever and going up on my lines and not remembering. Those are fascinating things to get a hold of when you become conscious and try to piece them together. And I think that they're so deeply personal that there's only one person who can have any insight into those things, and that's you. And nobody can ever tell you what it means. You're the one who, you know, is, I wonder. And I'm a great reader of Arthur Janov and Primal Therapy and all of his books. He's written about 10, and it's really, I find him quite remarkable. And I find that just simply in reading his material, he's the founder of Primal Therapy, and just reading the material, it's so understandable and so simply put for me. And he has been a pretty heavy influence in my life.
I wonder what it's like to grow up, be raised in fairly small towns, really.
75 people.
And then move to Los Angeles, live in, really be successful with the big boys. Do you ever look back at your life and say, boy, you know, I've really come a long way?
I never think about that. Well, I don't think I think about that. But I muse about exactly what you're talking about. Fort Norman with 12 people or so, and Thorhill north of Edmonton of 75 people. It's swelled now to about 125 over, I won't discuss how many years. But to come out of the, you know, I was never streetwise. I was, you know, only pathwise. We didn't have streets. We had paths, you know. So to end up from that background over a 2-year stretch to Toronto and then to New York City, I mean, if ever there was anyone who had a feeling of not belonging and being totally out of place, it was I, you know. But again, what saved me was that I looked like I knew what I was doing. So as long as I didn't say anything, I could sneak by and get by, but always with the tremendous feeling of not belonging. I didn't even think about myself as being a professional actor until 4 years after I had been earning my living as an actor. Because I really expected any night that somebody would be knocking, bang, 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 bang. Nielsen? Yes, what is it? Nielsen? Police? Yeah, what is it? What is it? Open the door. Okay. All right, pack your things. You're getting out of here. We're sending you back to Canada. We found out you have no talent. And that's how I felt. I really felt like I was an interloper, and that they were going to discover that, that I had no talent. That's changed now.
You have some
They
self-confidence.
they don't have to discover it. They all know now.
What kind of tip would you give a young performer who wants to follow in your footsteps and, you know, make that impossible dream possible?
Well, first of all, you know, I wouldn't. The tips are advice I don't give. Number one, but I think that the only thing of any importance, and you find it out for yourself, is perseverance, and particularly in this profession, because when the smoke clears, if you're still standing there, then you're liable to hang around. But it weeds us out very quickly, and it's a very tough and kind of painful profession because it is filled with rejection and loneliness and isolation. But if that's your bent and that's your drive or your compulsion, and it's strong enough, you will persevere, and that's all anything takes, perseverance. You know, rule out all the other characteristics, genius and insight and all talent. Even people who are untalented, if they persevere, they'll get further than people who have talent but don't persevere.